On today's Accelerate and Multiply show, we're going to show you how to get more eyes and more engagement with your business every single day. Now, my guest today has been a digital marketer for more than 15 years. He has served in the Australian Defence Force for 10 years, and he is the #1 podcaster in the iTunes business category. So welcome to the live stream, my good friend, Robert Brus.
Hey, Daniel, how are you, mate? Great to be here and looking forward to having a little bit of fun on the show here with you today.
Time since we've been in Sydney together. COVID-19 gave us a little divorce for a while.
It did. It was a shame we were having fun there for a while too. It was great.
Yeah, we had to have a long-distance relationship. I was saying to Nini, the last time I was in Sydney was in December, so we went and did the event in North Sydney.
Yeah, then you
salespeople.
Yeah, that was it.
Now, that was December, so that was the last time I was in Australia. So I've lived out of the country since 2007, and I think this has been the longest stretch that I've actually stayed away from the country because I'm normally back every couple of days.
Yeah. How's it feel?
I told her, that's my first lie. I'm only allowed 2 lies for the show.
Every couple of months.
Yeah, normally a couple of times a month. So Peter Ong, thanks for joining us today. Now, before we get into business and get down to the brass tacks and learn some strategies, I want to check in with you because you did yourself a little mischief recently. You went out spearfishing and you ended up in hospital. What happened?
Yes. I unfortunately I had a little bit of an accident. I was out spearfishing for a couple of hours and I brought myself back with some nice dinner in tow, as you do after you're out in the water for a little while. And I parked up on a beach called Blackwoods Beach, just around the corner from where I live. And normally that beach is covered in sand, but the nasty weather had removed all of the sand and it was all rocks. And I didn't realize when I was getting out. And I got all the way out of the water and I packed up all my gear and I was ready to go and was climbing up the rocks, navigating my way out of there. And normally it's like a beach and it's sand and it was all gone. And unfortunately I slipped over and I fell pretty hard, like a sack of potatoes, and it hurts falling over when you get a little bit older. And I fell back into the water and it was getting dark. It was on dusk and I was lying there thinking, surely this is not how it ends. This is ridiculous. And I had a collapsed lung, but my wetsuit saved me from breaking my ribs, but I was banged up pretty badly. And I tried to get up a couple of times and I couldn't. And I was lying in the shadows of the rocks in a camouflage wetsuit where nobody could see me. And I was lying there for about half an hour contemplating how ridiculous this is. And this is absolutely not the way that I'm going to leave this planet. And luckily someone came and rescued me and I've come good. It's been 8 weeks tomorrow since that had actually happened to me. And the day after it had happened, I was only in hospital overnight because I was all right. I didn't break anything, and I was pretty good within sort of 24 hours. In a lot of pain though. And the next day I woke up and I was standing at my window watching the sun come up, and I thought, this is the bonus round. I better make the most of this one here. So it kind of gave me a renewed perspective on life, and I've kind of been a little bit reinvigorated, to be completely honest, and things have turned around a little bit for me. It's amazing what happens when you change your attitude about things a little bit and have a bit more gratitude as well in the process. I think I've been taking everything a little bit too much for granted, which I've done less of. But it's great to be here sharing that story and not kind of buried in the ground because I fell over on the rocks at the beach. It's a ridiculous way to go.
So in your previous life, you worked with the Defence Force and you're a paratrooper. And you used to throw yourself out the back of an aeroplane at 30,000, 40,000 feet, and you could land safely, but you fall 3 feet and end up in hospital. How does that work?
Well, I never jumped out at high altitude like that, unfortunately. I would have loved to have done some Tom Cruise type stuff, but you're quite right. You know, getting out of an aeroplane at 8,000 feet at night time on a foreign drop zone that you've never been to before with 40 kilos of equipment is dangerous. Dangerous job, and you need a lot of training to get there. And I was so lucky; I never really got hurt. I had a couple of parachute malfunctions in the process of it all, but I never got injured. And there's so much scope to be injured, and that's what I was saying to you. I was lying on the sand on the rocks, thinking, surely this is not how it ends. After all the stuff that I've been through and all the things that had happened, this is just ridiculous. And I'm very, very fortunate that somebody found me and rescued me like that as well. But it's the ultimate irony, right? You get out at 15,000 feet and nothing happens to you, you fall 3 feet and you're nearly dead.
It's wild, isn't it? Just to think about, you're out there spearfishing, getting some food, and you end up in hospital after that. Dangerous world.
It's a reminder that as human beings, we're really soft. Where you watch all of these movies and you see all this crazy stuff going on in Hollywood and Netflix and all of these sorts of things. But the reality is, if you just get hit once with something small, that's pretty much the end of you. You're incapacitated and can't do much more. I was watching The Punisher the other night on Netflix, and the guy's getting shot up and bashed and stabbed and all these sorts of things. And it's like, man, I fell over like, half a meter, and that was the end of me. There's no way I could ever be the Punisher.
I think I've been watching too many Marvel videos over COVID-19, and I was thinking the other day, if I was crossing the street, and because I like rules and I like people to follow the rules, but over here on the road, the biggest vehicle gets the right of way. And I think to myself, if I'm crossing the road and a car comes around the corner, I'll just drop a shoulder into it and I'll knock it off its trajectory. And then I kind of work the beard for a little bit, and I think, I just don't think that's going to happen.
No, I'm not Iron Man. I'm not Tony Stark with a suit of armor.
Now, you've had to reinvent yourself here after a fall, but you also reinvented yourself at age 40, and you started to pursue a different set of goals and a different dream. What happened at 40, and what was the turning point for you?
Well, I was having a mental breakdown, and as I was approaching 40, because I'd missed all the targets and goals that I'd set for myself. And my brother said to me, he's 5 years older than me. He's a little bit, he's a bit bolder, a bit fatter, and a bit slower, but he's much wiser than me. He's not here listening, so he can't defend himself. So I am going to have a dig at you. Sorry, Rich. But he he really said to me, "Hey, man, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be all right. You will turn 40 and you wake up and it'll be the same as being 39. It's not a big deal to you." But I really came to a point in my life where I was pretty unfulfilled with the digital marketing agency that I was working with. Me and my bro, we worked together all day, every day, and I love him to bits. And we had a pretty successful business. It was doing good. It's one of those businesses that you could do for the rest of your life, where life's easy. You got a pocket full of money. You got great clients. You really kind of don't mind the work that you're doing. Everybody has to make a living somehow. But I was desperately unfulfilled, and I really wanted more out of life. And I wrote down a list of things that were interesting to me. And at the top of that list was aviation. Under that was motorbikes. And the third thing was media. And what are the things that fire you up in your life? Do you want to go be a pilot? Yes, I do, but I'm too old. I missed the boat. Can't be in the Air Force. I missed the boat. Could you go and be a helicopter pilot? Maybe I could do that. But still, you think that 40 years of age is too old to do something. What the hell? You're never too old to do anything. But actually, in some professions, your age is a pretty big limiting factor, and aviation is one of those things. So anyway, I went and got my commercial pilot's license, but I never went and actually used it for anything. So giant waste of money. Be careful if you're thinking about doing that. Make sure you're only in your 20s if you're going to do that. So I got that, but I never did anything with it. But the next thing that I thought that I really enjoyed that kind of gave me fulfillment was motorbikes. I love bikes. I love tearing around on bikes, going fast and all that sort of thing. And they're just beautiful, sexy machines that I really love. It's a very masculine sort of thing that I like. And I applied for a couple of jobs to maybe go and sell some bikes, and maybe I could get into the industry and work it out there. But no one would give me a job. And I was pretty disheartened by all of that. But I quickly just went, kind of chucked it out, and I thought, well, this media thing is the thing that really fires me up. What can I do? And I decided that I'd go down that path, and YouTube was where I was heading. But I thought, before I get to YouTube, why don't I go and see if I can work out this podcasting thing first and see what I can do with that, and I can hone my skills on audio. I've got a face for radio, not for video. Let's see if we can work that out. And it turned out to be a really good venture and a really good decision, because I discovered so much more about myself that I never actually knew. And reinventing yourself at the age of 40 is a scary thing to do. Leaving a solid business behind and an income and all of those things, and standing on the precipice and going, well, how are you going to make a living? You got to pay bills. There's rent to pay, there's bills to pay, there's mouths to feed. What are you going to do? I don't know. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work it out like I always do. And stuff falls into place. It really does. If you kind of let go of trying to control everything all of the time, things really have a good habit of working themselves out. And I really believe that it's got to do with creating a vacuum. You know, nature abhors a vacuum, right? If you create a vacuum in your life, in a relationship, and you want one will show up eventually. If you've got a career you don't like and you get rid of that one, a new one will take its place. It's inevitable that those things happen. If you don't have income and you need income will come in somewhere, somehow, eventually, because you need to get it. You're not going to not have a job or not going to have an income because you quit the one that you've got now. It happens and it turns around. And that's what happened to me. You know, I stood on the precipice. It was scary as hell. I decided I was going to go all in air quotes, and I took the leap, and I haven't looked back since. You know, there's been a couple of times where I had a few wobbly moments starting a new business and starting a new venture and going along the path. I had a bit of imposter syndrome for a little while. But once I started to have a few little wins, those wins built on each other and they were cumulative, and things started to improve, and they got a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And I'd wake up and go, wow, yesterday was awesome. I'm really fired up about today. I can't wait to get into it. And I'd go for it. And, you know, it's been a wild ride in the last couple of years, and COVID has been a blessing in disguise for me. It's been very reflective. The business kind of died completely for the first couple of months, and I was worried that it wasn't going to come back. And the other business that I have, a photography and wedding photography business and videography business, completely died as well. And it was more because of uncertainty than anything else, but it turned back around. That's come back to life. My business has come back to life, and things are really improving. And I'm like, well, it was a little bit of a hiatus for a couple of months there, about 3 months. But that hiatus is over, and I'm back to where I was. And I seem to be, when I look at the trajectory of income and I look at my balance sheet and I can see things happening, I'm like, actually, this is like, I'm on track to pick up where I left off in January, February. And okay, we had a little bit of a hiatus in the guts of it there, and there was a bit of an unknown happening there. But you know what? It's worked itself out, and it's been pretty good.
Like the Terminator.
Just got to keep going, baby. Got to keep going.
He's back. You know, over the past couple of months, we've been bouncing ideas backwards and forwards, and there's been a big problem in the marketplace. And it's a similar set of words that I'm hearing from my clients, and similar words that you're hearing from your clients as well. And it seems to be a common pattern of people saying, if I could only get more people to know about my stuff, I'll be okay. Now,
Yep.
you've seemed to dial that in and solve that problem with podcasting. How are you solving this problem for your customers, and what are they doing differently to get more people to know about their stuff?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a really important topic because there's only really two things that you can control in digital marketing anymore. And so what I've come to discover is the last probably 2.5 to 3 years since I've been doing this podcasting thing, digital marketing has changed a lot. And the two things that you can still control are your podcast, your appearance on a podcast, or your email list. Every other type of marketing that's out there is subjected to an algorithm, and those algorithms are owned by these giant monolithic companies that don't care whether or not your ad campaigns work or not. All they care about is you putting your credit card into their platform and spending money with them. So if you want to take back control of your marketing and you want to get in front of more people more frequently, you need to be independent of those platforms. So social media definitely has a place, and I love social media. I love it for advertising. I have ad campaigns running all the time, but those ad campaigns and social media as a rule are a bridge to get people back to my ecosystem. And my ecosystem resides on my website, in my hub. Because if I lose my Facebook Business Manager account for some reason, or my AdWords account gets canceled for some reason, then I'm kind of left high and dry. So podcasting is an important element of all of that to get more eyeballs into more places more quickly. And I love it. You get to operate with different types of audiences that you would otherwise not be able to access. And you can do that at scale as well. You know, a podcast with a poor listenership and a bunch of people that kind of subscribe to it, each episode will have 2,000 downloads in a month. So if I said to you, Daniel, hey man, can you come down to my event down the road here in the Shire and speak on stage? the very first thing you're going to say is, well, how many people are going to be there? I'll say, well, 2,000 people. You'll be like, well, how much are you going to pay me to come and speak to you? 2,000 people. That'd be the natural next thing out of your mouth, right? And podcasting is like that. People get wrapped up around the axles of, oh, that podcast has only got like 200 downloads per episode in 30 days. But if I put you in a room of 200 people and said, deliver your presentation, that would be a really solid result. But that's actually what's happening. And in some ways, podcasting is way more personable than any seminar or live presentation could be, because you're directly in the ears of these people and you have a direct influence with these people. So it always comes down to how compelling your offer is and how engaging your offer actually is, and how can you get people back to your ecosystem to be part of what it is that you're doing. So I love the idea of using podcasting to amplify a message. It's not the only way. It is a way of doing it, and it's a really, really effective way of doing it at scale. And if you went away and got yourself booked on 4, 6, 8 podcasts per month, you could do 2 podcasts per week, and each one of those had 600, 500 downloads, and you had 8 of them, you'd get in the ears and in the brains of 2,000 people that you'd never heard of before. So getting to the people is the easy part. We can do that with advertising this afternoon if you want. I'll put a couple of $100 into some Facebook ads and we get right in front of them. But is that as effective as a podcast? Not really, because you're not spending a full 60 minutes with that individual. You're getting them for a moment in a scroll. They might stop and watch a video for a little bit, scroll past, and you have to show them another ad and you have to do it again. You have to do it again. It's a process, right, which requires an artistic flair to actually make that work and to make it stick. Podcasting is not like that. We have a conversation. I'm a fly on a wall listening to the conversation. I really like this person. That's good. How do I get more of this person? How do I bring him back into my ecosystem? What's involved in doing that? And how do you be compelling to actually make that work? It's a really, really effective way of communicating.
The versatility of it for me is phenomenal. I started doing webinars back in 2013, and I spent about a lot of money to get about 1,500 people onto my database, 1,500 people into my webinar. And on the day that I delivered the webinar, nobody showed up. And it was really disappointing because I'd written the ebook, they downloaded the book, they were coming along to the next step, and nobody showed up. And I was sitting here in this office. Desk was on the other side. I used to have some chalk drawings on the back wall behind me because Nikita used to sneak in and draw her princesses on the wall.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there and I thought to myself, what do I do? I'm here. Nobody else is here, but I'm here. So what I did was I delivered it. And I guess at that stage, for me, podcasting was out of the reticular activation system. I didn't know what it was, but I had this webinar. So I recorded it, and then I started to share it across other platforms. So I took a webinar and essentially turned it into a podcast. And then I broke it up into little bite-sized chunks of information. And what I found was, although nobody showed up, it was those listeners afterwards who actually tuned in to the small chunks, the bite-sized bits of information, and then eventually went on to listen to the whole thing. And so it wasn't wasted. Where I was stuck, I thought, well, if they don't show up now, I'm bugging. But it was what I actually did with it afterwards that had so much more value. And I'm loving that about podcasting, and especially how you showed me how to make audiograms, is how you can take a podcast and then you can redistribute it through many different mediums.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's like an accordion. You can squeeze it in, or you can stretch it all the way out.
Yeah, so, I coined that creating content at scale. So you one piece of content. I've got a lot of clients actually that use the podcast as the baseline of their entire content strategy. You know, once upon a time, everyone had a blog and everybody was blogging. What do I write in my blog? You know, it's all about SEO and attracting clients and whatnot. Podcasting is the new version of blogging. And the reason for that is what you just said, is because you can slice and dice the thing, and it starts as this narrow accordion and you put your arms all the way out. If you're clever about it, you can pull out probably a dozen individual pieces of content. And then if you circulate that across all different platforms, so Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and if you're clever, you can put it in some other places as well, and you can run paid traffic to it, you get that 12 times multiplier. So in Facebook, I've got 12 posts, but I've got 12 different audiograms, but then I can put 12 different bits of text. So I've multiplied that. So now I've got 24 posts that I can deploy and mix and match just in one platform. I could do that in Twitter, I could do that in Instagram, I could do that in LinkedIn, and I could deploy that content into YouTube as well. And mixing and matching like that works really well. And if each one of those, I've done the numbers on this, so I should share the spreadsheet with your audience, actually, it's kind of cool, is what I compared podcasting to pay-per-click advertising. And I'm trying to compare watermelons and cabbages. I get it. They're two completely separate things. But if you look at the cost per click based on a given organization and a given amount of keywords, and you were a podcaster or you were somebody in that space that wanted to do it, and you said, hey, your clicks were worth, say, $2 each. And you can do the research and you can find out what the cost of clicks would be in Google. And if you deployed 12 pieces of content across 4 different platforms over a period of a month, you'd have 48 places that would be done. And you could mix and match that again and do it again. So you had 80 or 70 or 80 pieces of content that were out there in all of those different platforms. And each one of those brings you back 10 clicks per month. You have 500 or 600 clicks coming back to your website in a given month. Now, if I bought 500 or 600 clicks directly from Google at $4 each, I'd be $2,000 in it. But it didn't cost me $2,000 to create this podcast. This podcast is free. It doesn't cost me anything. It costs me the cost of StreamYard or Zoom or whatever piece of software I'm using to do it, and then the cost of production, and then the cost to get somebody in Upwork to craft your beautiful images, a writer there that you have on your payroll as well, and then somebody to create your audiograms. It's not going to cost you $2,000 to do that. So the cost of podcasting and deploying the content at scale like that versus pay-per-click advertising, podcasting wins hands down every single time. You just have to be really clever in the way that you engage with it and deploy it.
I like the speed as well, Rob. I remember 2017, I started to do some live streams on Facebook. And a mate of mine probably tagged me in a post in maybe 2016. He said, what do you think the future of Facebook is? And I looked at the live streaming, and I just saw a lot of garbage on there. And so the garbage kind of clouded my decision about it. And I thought, it's not right. People are getting on there. There's no structure to their content. There's no defined outcome. And there wasn't a lot of value in it. So I didn't use it because of that factor. But then I started to think about how could I actually get my message out there? And I met a gentleman from the UK, and his name was James Lavelle, a superstar in network marketing. And he was getting like 400 and 500 people on a live. And they had this incredible strategy where they would funnel people from Facebook into groups and then to a live. And in these back-end private live streams, it's the modern day webinar, they were having thousands of people. And he used to laugh and say, I've crashed Facebook. And he would overload the server and it'd just drop out. And so he invited me on one, and I was new into the market, but I was his coach. And he said, look, I want to introduce you to my audience. And in one live stream, 450 people live were introduced to Daniel Tolson. And so what I knew was I knew the audience's problem, and I had a solution for that. And within about 90 days, we're doing our first live training in the UK.
Wow.
So I'm streaming from Sydney on the other side of the world. The money's coming into my PayPal account from the UK. They've never met me. And then 90 days later, we're over there doing a course.
Yeah.
And so the speed for me is phenomenal. You can turn it on now and you're up and running. You can change your message as you go. And for me, one of my backgrounds is hypnosis. And we have a thing in hypnosis, and it's called utilization. And when you're communicating to your audience, you're utilizing and leveraging on what's happening in their life at that given time. And here's how I use it. If I see a prospect jumping on a live, I can tell a particular story that highlights their problem and the solution, because I can see them on my feed. And so I can adapt to that. You can do that in a live event, which you can't do at the moment, by the way. Yeah. But I can see people joining on, and I can change my presentation on the fly. So the speed of it is also phenomenal. But the benefit from there is I saw somebody come onto a live stream, change the story, broke it up into audiograms, posted it back onto Facebook, and a gentleman reached out to me. I've never heard of him before. And he goes, that 2-minute video clip that you just shared, he goes, it was like you were talking to me.
Yeah, right. Beautiful.
So a live stream over here, to breaking up into an audiogram to a client over here worth thousands of dollars was phenomenal. So what I knew was, in testing my content and seeing what people were responding to, I could then focus in on my next podcast to make sure it was really relevant to a particular audience. So the speed is really fast of feedback as well. The speed to get to market, but the speed on feedback is faster than I've ever seen before. Because if you've got to sit down and write a piece of content, you can go and do that. But if you're not a writer, if you're a speaker and not a writer, it doesn't work to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the questions that I get all the time I get this question, and it goes to the very heart of your points that you're making there, is how do I bring somebody back into my ecosystem? And what somebody's really asking, and how do they get the results that you just described without having to slice it up 50 different ways? How can I just turn up to this interview and throw up at the microphone and actually tell my stuff in a way that's compelling enough to get people to come back to my ecosystem? And what it comes down to is, how compelling are you, and what is it that makes you compelling? And what I've discovered is it's how relatable you are. So it's really important that if you're going to go and do an interview, that you understand the audience. And when you're talking about speed and adaptability and pivoting, because there's people in there that you know, that allows you to pivot. And in pivoting like that on the spot, you become really super relatable. And when you're relatable, you're compelling. And if you're not sure how to do this, maybe I can share this with your audience. One really easy way to build the connection is by using a system that I call heart, head, hands, heart. So it's a really simple formula, pretty easy to remember. So I'll say it again. It goes heart, head, hands, heart. So you start off by telling a heartfelt story. So whenever somebody introduces you, "Hi, Rob, welcome to the podcast." "Hi, Daniel, thanks very much. It's great to be here." And the first question that you get needs to be a heartfelt answer. And it needs to be genuine from the heart, not some rationalized sales pitch that's coming out of your mouth. You need to build connection with the host or the hosts of the show that you're actually on to begin with. Then what you want to do is you want to go to the head piece. And you want to work out how to do this in a cyclic way. And you can almost do it with a whole series of questions. You don't have to do it as individual pieces, heart, head, hands, heart. You can do it as a piece with every answer that you deliver to somebody. So when you go to the head piece, what you want to do is you want to give somebody a win. You want to take them from point A to point B. You can use this strategy or this tactic to go from point A to point B. And I'll give you an example. If you want to learn to connect with more people and you want to get your message out there with more people, my recommendation to you and to your audience is to get booked onto as many podcasts as you can, and don't look at how many downloads that they have. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. What matters is that when you get there, you're compelling, and you're compelling by using this methodology. So this is a to B. If you want me to show you how to do that, if you want me to show you how to go from A to B, but not just from A to B, A to Z, I can show you how to do that as well. And the hands bit, so I go heart, head, hands. If you want me to show you how to do that, head on over to my website at goallin.com.au and bring the call to action up to the very front of the podcast that you're on, or on the interview that you're on, or whatever you're communicating, however you're communicating. It might be on YouTube. You got to bring your call to action and bring your website up, your social media, whatever that might be, to the front of the interview, because not everyone stays with the whole interview. That's the way to do that. You've done that for me today by showing my website. So I haven't done that earlier on because you already showed that as I was explaining it. But not a lot of people do that or have the skills to talk and click around as they're doing it as well. The final piece of heart, head, hands, heart is to share stories of client success. And in sharing client success stories, what you'll do is you'll demonstrate how much you care. And when you demonstrate how much you genuinely care because you're celebrating the client's success, you become so unbelievably relatable because that person could do that for me as well. I want that same success as well. So you become compelling in the process where, hey, he could do that for those people, and he took them from A to B, but he also took them from A to Z, and he got those results for them. I wonder if he can do that for me as well. What was that website again? Hang on, let me see. So it's a really effective way. If you've got a process that you can utilize and you can lean on while you're being interviewed, that can be really effective of getting people back into your ecosystem and making these types of interviews work for you.
I love the strategy there, and it's one that I've been deploying. I think that's a military word, deploying, since you showed me that one last year, and it makes a huge difference. And especially the hands heart method. I think that's key to it. I was watching the Joe Rogan podcast last night with Mike Tyson.
Yep.
And I've heard the name Mike Tyson, Iron Mike Tyson, for the past 40 years. And for me, it didn't mean a lot to me. It didn't mean a lot because, there's a lot of media hype and there's a lot of marketing around the boxing scene. And I'm the type of person who wants to make up my own mind. I don't want to be influenced by others. I want to see what's right for me. And so for the first time, I actually watched a Joe Rogan podcast. First time. There was 9 other million subscribers there, and he got my vote yesterday, as my wife would say. Gave him your vote.
Welcome to the Joe Rogan ecosystem. Now you're part of it.
I'm there, and I logged in and I watched the Mike Tyson interview, and it was that same thing. He started to tell a story, and it really drew me in. I was like, wow, that perception there was my perception. I'd formed my own perception of him, and it was 1 o'clock this morning, and I'm taking screenshots. I'm going through going, you just dropped a nugget of gold. I'm taking a screenshot, so I can go back and review it. And one of the big connectors for me was I specialize in the field of emotional intelligence, and Mike Tyson, the Iron Mike, is talking about emotional intelligence.
Interesting, right?
And so then the next day I'm saying to the wife, I'm going, wife, you wouldn't believe it. Do you know Mike Tyson? She's like, yeah, the boxer. And I said, he's talking about emotional intelligence. She's like, well, let's watch the podcast together.
Yeah.
And for all those years that I'd never really made that connection with Joe Rogan or Mike Tyson, I'm now a big fan because I've met him on a platform where he's not being sold.
Yep.
He's not trying to sell anything. It's just, here I am. I'm having a conversation, and you get to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I describe that, and that's the success of podcasting right there. And interviews like this is what happens is you formulate opinions as an individual, as a human being, and you end up in an echo chamber. And what I mean by that is if I'm a left-leaning greenie, the type of content that I look at is left-leaning and greenie. And that's the stuff that I see in my Facebook feed, my Instagram feed. That's the type of news I watch. That's the type of content I'm exposed to. So the minute I see somebody from the center or somebody from the right communicating something, I'm like, I don't like that. And that's what creates all of this angst and all of this fighting online. And you have to remember that these media companies have an agenda. Their agenda is to get you to click, get you to talk, get you to share, and get you to talk about their stuff and share the links with controversy. Because the more links they can share, the more clicks they get, the more ad revenue they get in the process. So you've got to be careful of not ending up in a modern day echo chamber by surrounding yourself with only the things that you like to see. It's really important to open up your aperture and to be exposed to other things. And the reason that podcasting is so successful and interviews and YouTube's like this is so successful is because it removes the echo chamber. And what happens is you and I are having a conversation here that's not being filtered by anything. You think, I don't want to watch an interview with Mike Tyson. Idiot's got a tattoo on his face and he's, oh my God, really? He was in jail for rape and all this bad stuff. But you're influenced by everything else that you've ever heard about the guy. And there's no way that you could not be influenced by him or form your own decision when he's talking to Joe Rogan for 3 hours at a time, because there's nothing influencing you. That's why it's so successful. Joe Rogan was asked on his most recent podcast by Tim Kennedy. Tim Kennedy said, why don't you get Donald Trump and Joe Biden in this room and do the interview with them and do it live? Yeah, smoking a joint, drinking a whiskey while you're doing it, right? Imagine that. And Joe's like, I'm up for anything. Whatever you want, I'll do it. And when you think about it, it is like one of the smartest questions that's ever been asked in the last 10 years of digital media that we've been in. And Tim Kennedy came up with that. And the reason I say it's so smart is because there's absolutely no way that you couldn't let your bias affect the decision that you're making through an interview when you see like that. So Donald Trump's on one side, Joe Biden's on the other side, Joe Rogan's in there as well. And the three of them are having a conversation that goes on for more than just 10 minutes of the media picking at them. And the media that you see, that you're exposed to, is the media that they want you to see, which is divisive. And they're deliberately divisive because they want you to talk about their stuff so you can click on their stuff so they get paid more money. In a live streamed interview like we're doing right now, there is no division. You might have heard of me before and you thought, that guy's a jerk. I don't like that guy. I would never do that. But then you come to a live interview like this and you spend half an hour with me and you go, actually, he's not a jerk. He's actually a pretty good guy. He's got some good stuff to say, and I'm not influenced by anything else that's out there. So the success of these platforms is related to taking you outside of that echo chamber that you're in and eliminating all of the influence that's out there as well. And it's incredibly powerful if you've got a message of any description to share. If you've got products to sell, services to sell, or you just want to get a message out there, you got to get on interviews just like this because it removes the echo chamber and it gives you that opportunity to showcase your skill set.
I love what you say there. And we talk a lot about building relationships. And you can actually feel that you build a relationship. Like I was watching Tim Kennedy. I've seen a little bit of his stuff on TV here in Taiwan, and I saw him on the podcast. I went, that's a familiar face. And I heard him talking to Joe Rogan about, what he'd have to do to get him on the show. And he's like, well, I'd have to get really blazed. I'd have to smoke a lot of weed before I got him on. Yeah. At least you can start to, see those people's beliefs and their values, and you build that relationship and you formulate it yourself. And for Australians who are tuning into this, and the other parts of the world are really changing now with sales, is the first sale that you make is yourself. Years ago, you could spend hours building rapport with the prospect, but people don't have that time anymore.
No,
you and I were talking offline about you need to have shares in the Rode business because you've made so many recommendations for the Rode microphone. I've been looking at a couple of different microphones, and it's the first time that I've been using YouTube to do my research. So I was having a look at what people out there in the marketplace who had bought it and were providing a balanced review on a microphone. Now I'm talking about a microphone that's only $100 for the pod mic, but in the process of doing the research, I looked at all these influencers and their opinions on it. And by the end of watching maybe half a dozen of these videos, just about a $100 product, I knew automatically that I wanted the product because I knew the strengths of it. I knew the weaknesses of it. I knew the different types of application and how to use it, which for me, I might have spent an hour and a half doing the research, but I didn't have to leave my house. I didn't have to go to the local audio shop and feel guilt for walking in and going, look, I just want to demonstrate it.
I just want to have a look. Just give us a look, can I see? And then you're like, yeah, it's good. It's a mic.
I don't want to get sold to. It's $100. It's nothing. But I want to go in there and I'm trying to figure out how can I do this and have my experience and formulate my own opinion. But by the time I'd watched these influencers and different podcasts talking about the strengths and weaknesses in a very balanced approach, I had sold myself on it. And it was only just an hour ago, and then he was here in the office with me. I said, look, here's the link. This is the two microphones that I want. And so I haven't even spoken to a salesperson.
But you made a decision to buy it, isn't it? And it's incredibly powerful. If you can get other people talking about your products and services, oh my gosh, isn't that the ultimate validation of your products and services, that they're so good, they're so solid? And I'm not talking about a testimonial or a review. You got somebody on YouTube talking about the products and how it's helped them and what's happening with something like that, and they're demonstrating it for you like that. That's quite different to a review or a testimonial. The unboxing of a GoPro 7 like this, what's in the box? Oh my God, that's kind of cool, man. Just show me the photos. What do the videos look like? It's quite different, right? So, but it's the ultimate validation for sure.
I was watching a podcast the other day, a guy named Tom Buck, and he he does a lot of this unboxing, and he talks about studio setups. And I thought to myself, I'm just going to write to him and I'm going to see if he responds to me. So I reached out to him, asked him a question about his channel, and within, I reckon, 6-7 hours, he responded personally.
He did. Nice. Excellent.
And so for me, it was like, well, it's confirmation in my mind that was a balanced review about what he'd been reviewing. And actually, I asked him, I said, hey, Tom, just out of curiosity, I was watching your live stream and you told me you're using a streaming platform. What was it? And he said it was Streamyard. And because I was really blown away by his, and I just went and signed up to the $65 a month Streamyard, but happy because I went in on his recommendation, totally unbiased.
Isn't it funny? StreamYard have spent probably hundreds of thousands of dollars on their landing pages, their ad campaigns, their sales pages, all of that stuff. And you're like, yeah, that's nice. How much is it? And you're like, $55 a month, I'll have that one. That seems reasonable. And you kind of bypass their entire ecosystem because you saw their product in action. You saw somebody reviewing it, saw it happening like that. Oh my gosh, the only way to get there and to do that is to actually be engaged in platforms like this to get there. You can buy your way there with ads. You can definitely do that. You can get your way there with influencing, but the fastest way to do it is doing it like this. It's a really, really quick and efficient way of doing it.
I've got a client there in Sydney, and she tells me bluntly, she says, Daniel, I do marketing, spend $600 a month on Instagram, but if I do a leads campaign on Instagram or Facebook, they don't convert. So what I do is I create content that nurtures my existing customers and my future customers, so people who have purchased and who will come back in the future. And what happens is she just gets huge amounts of referrals. And so the business runs on referrals, and she's always putting top quality educational content out there. And what we teach, and we taught this last year in Sydney, was about the selling triangle. You know, what people want today is they firstly want to build a relationship with you.
Yeah.
And so once you get that friendship factor, you know, other people say know, like, and trust. Well, it feels like you've got a friend. And when you've got a friend there, you know that your friend's going to give you balanced and good advice. Mike Tyson, on the interview yesterday with Joe Rogan, he said that he rocked up somewhere and some guy said to him, Mike, you're bloody fat. What's going on? You're out of shape. You look disgusting. And Mike said, he goes, that's your true friend. Somebody who tells you bluntly, goes, everybody else is just blowing smoke at me. They're my enemies.
Yeah.
And so if selling today, you've got to have a relationship. You've got to build the relationship. And I've been with Ninny for 11 years. Relationships take time. And the live stream gives you an opportunity to spend time with that person. The second part is the educational selling. I want to be educated. I want to learn. And once we educate people, they look at us as a teacher. And it comes with that level of respect. And maybe you didn't respect your teachers at school, but maybe you've had a mentor throughout your life. And when that person gives you good advice, you go, hey, that's solid advice. That's well thought through. So you get the friendship factor. You become their teacher. And then the third part that I believe is really important today is that consultative selling. And a consultant is a trusted advisor. And if your client has built that friendship with you online, if they've listened to their educational content, you've already educated them. And then when you speak to them, you give them good advice. And sometimes the advice is not to do anything. Don't buy a product, don't buy a service, but you'll respect that if they say that. But if they believe it's the perfect thing for you to do for your business right now, they'll tell you directly. And so it's that consultative approach where there's no pressure. We say in the consultative method, the only pressure you're allowed to use is the pressure of the silence.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, give it a try.
Yeah, 100%. I would add one extra thing to that in the context of what we're talking about as well, is that I really believe that it doesn't matter what product or service that you've got for sale. You're in a hyper-competitive market. It's a very, very rare thing that you've got a product or service that somebody else doesn't have. You know, I can pick a Samsung S20 phone like I've got right next to me here, or I can pick this fancy iPhone 11 or 15 or whatever number they're up to. You know, there's a bunch of different things that I can pick. But really, at the end of the day, they're both really good phones. So it's much of a muchness. And it doesn't matter what product you're selling, whether it's mobile phones or it's your personal coaching, your personal branding, whatever it is that you're selling, somebody else has got it. So in order to differentiate yourself really quickly and to give people an opportunity to experience you, what you need to do is, I always say, you need to come out from behind your brand. If you're hiding behind your brand and you're not the face of your business, or you don't have somebody that's the face of your products or services, that means you're just going to blend into the white noise of the background. You're going to me as a customer, you look like the same as the guy on the left, as the woman on the right, as the other lady there next to her and the other guy next to him. What's the difference? You all look the same to me. But actually, no, all four of those people are very, very different. They're very nuanced in their delivery. They're very skilled in their execution. They've all got different levels of experience. I don't know that as a consumer unless you come out from behind the brand and do those things that you said. Be the consultant, build the relationship. I feel like I know you, you're my friend. And then you're giving recommendations to me as well. And the fastest way to do that is in interviews like this. You come out from behind your brand. It doesn't cost you a huge amount of money to do something like this, or you create your own platform where you can do this consistently as well, which is the preferred way of doing it.
I love it. Well, we're going to get to know you really good now. I've got 5 questions for you, and you've got to answer them honestly.
Honesty is like, and gratitude is where I'm coming from after nearly drowning at the beach because I fell down a meter and like didn't hit my head, luckily.
Well, you hear, mate, I've got 5 rapid fire questions, and as fast as you can, top of the mind, tip of the tongue. I want to go through these and let's learn about Rob. What frustrates you the most?
Repeating myself.
And what was that?
Hey.
You're not living in that echo chamber.
No.
What's your most embarrassing moment in life?
Falling down 1 meter in the rocks and being camouflaged at night time and no one finding me and nearly dying there.
That's pretty the camouflage worked.
Yeah, it did work.
For you personally, what one book has had the biggest impact on your life?
Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff.
Why that book?
So that was Oren Klaff's original book, and I realized that I'd been selling all wrong all these years. I'd just been using old-fashioned techniques, old-fashioned ways of doing things, and Pitch Anything helped me to get out of that and use a little bit more emotional intelligence. There you go. Thanks, Linda, for mentioning that. That's very timely. But using a lot more EQ to actually sell with, and it helped me rocket my business into the stratosphere, actually. So that was very influential on me.
And over the years, what's been the one mental or emotional block that's held you back the most?
I don't think there's one. It's never one thing that holds you back. It's always a collection of little things. I think dwelling on the past of things that I should have done has been something that I probably shouldn't have done. You know, and the only thing that we really have is right now. What happened to us doesn't matter. You can't change it. What's happening, don't focus too much attention on that. You need to give it some attention, but not too much. What really matters is right now. And I think the thing that's held me back a lot in my life is dwelling a lot on the past. I did that badly when I left the military. I feel like I got out of the military too soon, and the transition was way longer than it should have been. The transition should have been 6 months. Really, if you leave a job or you quit a business and you go and start something else, it shouldn't take you more than 6 months to a year to get over it, to get over the thing that didn't work or didn't work out. But yeah, it took me probably 5 years to transition. And I think for various different reasons, that really held me back and caused a lot of problems in my life.
And for somebody who is having a challenge with a transition now, what advice would you give them knowing what you now know?
Make a plan. Be sensible in the way that you operate. In these COVID times now more than ever before, when you're standing on the precipice of doing something and you're trying to figure out whether or not you should go all in or not, you should definitely do it. I would say go all in and have a crack, because you're never going to score a goal if you're sitting on the sideline watching everyone else playing a game of football. You got to get on the pitch. You got to be able to kick the ball and get it in the goal in order to actually have a crack at it. But before you do that, make sure you're wearing the right shoes. You've got the right uniform on. You're playing for the right team. And the way to do that is to get yourself organized, to have a plan. But before you do anything, can you go and execute on any of that plan? What I would say is get your head right. You need to get your mindset right about what it is that you are about to embark on. And when you decide you're going to go all in and you make a declaration to the world that you're going to do that, you better be organized, because the minute it gets a little bit hard, if you're not organized, you'll let yourself off the hook. And you just don't want to do that, because making a commitment to something is a fun thing to do. And trying new things and having to go at new things in life is a really, really fun place to be.
Go all in, and that's how we're going to do it, mate. 100%. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much on behalf of everybody. Thanks for joining us here today, Rob. Go over to goallin.com.au. It's a great website. You can see a lot of the interviews that Rob has been doing with celebrities, politicians, business owners around the world, and he holds the #1 position on the podcasting space for podcasts in the business sector on iTunes. Well done, mate. Congratulations. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today, and we'll see you on the other side.
Absolute pleasure. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, mate.